A very warm welcome to today's episode of Tax Matters with Olumuyiwa Matuloko. We are so excited to be presenting this episode today. And that's because the other week, Abuja was literally lit up, talking about the week of Monday, the 3rd of October, precisely Thursday, the 6th, and Friday, the 7th of October. Tax men and women gathered together. Those men and women who in those days used to be derided. Those who even in the scriptures are referred to as sinners. Those who today are feared or at best tolerated, gather together to fraternize, to celebrate, and to strategize for the future. And more pleasingly, those who appreciate what they do, those who appreciate their contribution to national development, joined them and commended them. The occasion was the second International Tax Conference organized by the Joint Tax Board. It was held in Abuja and it attracted participants from home and abroad. Theme of the second International Tax Conference was Taxation and Good Governance, a Recipe for Sustainable Growth. Malam M.L. Abubakar is the Secretary of the Joint Tax Board.
We are using this conference also to mark the 50th anniversary of the Joint Tax Board. As you may be aware, the Joint Tax Board was created by repeal Income Tax Management Act of 1961, and today is provided for in Section 86 of the Personal Income Tax Act 2004.
To underscore the importance of the occasion and the relevance of the conference and indeed taxmen and women to national development, President Goodluck Jonathan sent in the Coordinating Minister for the Economy and Honorable Minister of Finance to declare the conference open. Welcoming participants from home and abroad to the second International Tax Conference, Chairman of the Joint Tax Board, who is also the Executive Chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, traced the history of the Joint Tax Board from its inception in the year 1961.
As you know, this is a double celebration. We're not just having an International Tax Conference, we're also celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Joint Tax Board. So thank you for making our day wonderful. As a brief background, the Joint Tax Board was created in 1961 by the repealed Income Tax Management Act of 1961. Specifically, came into being April 1, 1961. And has over the years been retained in successful legislation provided for in the Personal Income Tax Act 2004. But it's interesting to note that the Joint Tax Board was created for the same reasons that we have today. If you recall, in terms of the progress of taxation in Nigeria, in the pre-independence times, we had a situation where we were originally first managed by central government and as a unitary state, before we created the three regions, the Western, Eastern, and Northern regions. And with the creation of these regions and the native ordinances, we had a situation where each of the regions were also administering their taxes to the natives. But in the prelude to independence, one of the things that came across that needed to be addressed was, amongst others, the multiplicity of taxation that we had at that time, and also the fact to provide clarity to the tax system in terms of understanding who should tax what and how should it be done. And that led to the creation of the Income Tax Management Act 1961. But the exception was to address the issue of multiplicity, because having different regions still administer taxes meant that there was a risk of the lack of harmonization in the way these taxes would be administered, and the lack of standards, and the distinct possibility that the multiplicity of taxes, which was one of the issues at that time, will remain. And then came the Joint Tax Board, made up of the chairman of the Federal Board of Inland Revenue, which is then known, and members of the states, or regions at the time, and then states eventually, with the sole objective, amongst others, of providing uniformity and harmony in the administration of income tax.
The chairman of the Joint Tax Board also spoke on the role of the JTB in curbing the menace of multiple taxation.
Multiple taxation remains an issue. In fact, it's not even the 1964 to 1961. It has grown legs. And grown legs in the bid to grow revenue, but not just so much grow revenue, because ultimately a lot of the issues in multiple taxation don't actually translate to government revenue. In pre-1961 days, it translated more than I would say today, and therefore remains an issue in building our competitiveness, in building our ability to compete with the rest of the world, to create jobs, and to make our products as cost competitive as possible.
Dr. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Coordinating Minister for the Economy and Honorable Minister of Finance, led other dignitaries in attendance to commend the tax fraternity for their role in national development, while at the same time painting a vivid picture of the current status of the world economy.
I'd like to start off by thanking all of you for being really an enduring institution in the country. I think that this is a very, very important occasion, and we should not minimize it. We talk about the fact that we cannot develop in this country without building institutions. Running the economy is not about any one person. As the president said the other day, it's about having enduring institutions that take us through. And this happens to be one of them, and I want to celebrate that. So another round of applause. I'm particularly glad about the topic that you've chosen for this conference: taxation and good governance, a recipe for sustainable development. And as I said, speaking on my own behalf, we all know that taxation is a major collaboration between citizens and government, where citizens contribute to the national purse and trust that government will use this contribution to bring about growth and development in all areas of economic and social life. For this reason, it's important to hold dialogues of this nature, where the clear relationship between taxation, good governance, development in the country comes out in the open. I often say in different places that we need the public to be more demanding of us, because it's a demanding public that makes sure that resources are used in the best way possible. One other point I want to make on this is just to remark that the global environment is really changing. It's very, very uncertain. As I came from the meeting of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund last week, and was with all the finance ministers from all over the world, I've never seen so much uncertainty. For once, I noticed that nobody really had the answers. I'm saying all of this to say that this means you have to pay particular attention to diversifying this economy and therefore diversifying our tax base. It's not an academic issue that one hears about and then you close your eyes and say, oh, one more time. But for us, it's become a real life and death issue as a nation, that we've got to change the structure of the economy. We've got to change and improve the base for our taxation, because non-oil taxation in this country is one of the lowest in terms of percentage of GDP in the world.
The coordinating minister for the economy thereafter read the speech of the President and Commander-in-Chief, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
It is therefore in recognition of the fact that the JTB needs all the support which it can get, particularly with respect to strengthening the statutory framework, that this administration worked with the National Assembly to ensure the passage of the Personal Income Tax Amendment Bill 2011 earlier this year at the very commencement of the administration. The Personal Income Tax Amendment Bill is currently before me for assent into law, and I want to assure the Joint Tax Board that the bill will receive full attention so that it can become operational as soon as possible. With respect to this conference, it is my expectation that it will provide another avenue for focused deliberations and discussions on the various issues which affect the Nigerian tax system and its ability to be a tool for good governance and sustainable growth. As this administration has stated on many occasions, each sector of the Nigerian economy will give equal opportunity and support to contribute its own quota to national development.
As part of the opening formalities, more commendations, more encomiums poured in. In separate interviews thereafter, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and the chairman of the Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Bassey Otu, placed taxation in its rightful place in the scheme of things.
I think that the issue of taxation is crucial to the transformation agenda for the economy. Why is that? Because really, a country that is able to generate taxes for revenue is a country that is able to support itself and sustain itself. In the case of Nigeria, we should be very grateful that the Joint Tax Board has endured for 50 years. This is a celebration of 50 years. And as Mr. President said, we want institutions that endure in this country. The fact that the Joint Tax Board is there, brings all the people who work on our taxes together, ensures us that as we diversify the base of this economy, we will have the people in place who will help us to make sure we tax properly, and more importantly, will keep us in check so that we use the revenues that we get from our people in a more transparent and honest way to develop the economy.
We cannot depend on oil anymore. I know very well we lost touch with the real culture of tax when the oil money came in. Now it's very clear that the trend, especially like in Europe, where their growth has been reduced to something like 3%, which means we definitely will not be expecting what we expected, what we thought we should be expecting from oil, even in this 2012 budget. So we're really going to face issues of taxation very soon. We have too many people that are not paying taxes, too many companies. In fact, as the last count when I checked, about 350-something thousand companies that are even benefiting from government projects are not really paying tax. And the professionals, like you have the accountants, the lawyers, the doctors, there's no proper framework to tax them properly. So we'll be looking into all those areas to make sure that we raise the present percentage of taxation in the country, because if you look at it, it's something like about between 15 and 18%, which we want to raise it to something like a 40%. The only thing we want to assure the populace is that with the democratic dispensation in place, the tax actually is going to be used to grow the economy. We'll try to rebuild an infrastructure, and we'll try to make sure that we better the life of our citizens. I think that way we'll buy confidence, and everybody will be willing and ready to pay their taxes on time.
Opening formalities done with, the intellectual session began in earnest. Professor Kabiru Dandago of the Bayero University, Kano, delivered a paper on integrating discipline of taxation into the national psyche. The session was chaired by no other person than the Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Yerima Lawan Ngama, while the duo of Dr. Peter Ozueson of the Nigerian Labour Congress and Alhaji Idi Farouk, Director General, National Orientation Agency, discussed the paper. Later in the afternoon, Professor Mick Moore of the International Center for Tax and Development delivered a paper on taxation, a veritable tool for development. That paper presentation session was chaired by Chief David Olorunleke, a past chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Joint Tax Board. Discussants were Mr. Tunde Lemo, Deputy Director of Operations at the Central Bank of Nigeria, and Mr. M.A. Sidike, Director of Tax Policy at the Federal Inland Revenue Service. All that you have seen took place on day 1, Thursday, the 6th of October. Later in the evening, participants took a break to converge again on Friday, the 7th of October, but more importantly, to come back in the evening for a gala night in celebration of the Joint Tax Board at 50. Special guest of honor at the Joint Tax Board at 50 gala night was His Royal Highness Alhaji Idris Musa, the Emir of Jiwa in the Federal Capital Territory, who regular viewers of this program have met before on the program. His Royal Majesty Idris Musa is still his vintage self.
Nigerians are people that need a roof. We don't want to pay our tax, in which is not the best for our country. Nigerians, allegedly, Nigeria has a potentials and we have taxes that is untapped. The 60% of the revenue we are earning here now, the 50%, the 60% of the revenue we have, 40% are left out without tapping, untouched, and nobody wants to talk about it. Let me tell you one thing. We are getting our revenue from petroleum and so many other things. I remember in those days when the village chief and others goes to the houses and make a head count. By that time, we know the number of people that are paying taxes, isn't it? You know the number of people in your village. It serves and then we get the revenue there, we get our taxes there, and it still helps us for the security of our community because we know the people that enter our town. How many things we achieve? We got the tax, we got security. But today, there's none. Because with the population, the people in the village now don't pay tax. The population is growing, and the tax is not coming. The security is there because we don't know the number of people that are entering. We are losing much. It is high time for the government to do something about it. You get money, pay tax. This country is growing every day. If we don't have tax, what are we going to do? Nigerians, we should have peace. Compared to the government, forget about move. You get paid. You don't get paid. You get paid. You don't have paid. Because if you don't pay, you will not have time to do whatever it is. Every day we are waiting for our move. We are waiting to go and get. That is why you see most of our communities now if you go to a politician's house, you see it's just like a market because they are waiting for our move. And even they are collecting money, say, if they give you 1,000, give you a tax of 1 naira, you not see them.
Chief David Ajibola Olorunleke was a long-serving chairman of the Joint Tax Board. What memories do you have of your time, of your tenure at the head of the Joint Tax Board?
Well, the memories I continue to have is the companionship that I used to enjoy. Getting all the members together and talking the same taxation. I like people to continue to talk about taxation. But unfortunately in Nigeria, we don't like to talk about it because people don't like it. But the more we talk about it, the more we understand it, the more we are able to comply. If people continue to shy away from it, we don't understand the law, we shy away from the compliance, and yet, we need the revenue for development. So let us, get together and continue to talk about taxation. So I used to enjoy the company of colleagues from the states coming together to talk about the problems we are facing in taxation and collection throughout the nation and how to resolve it. And I think it continues,
I am very much delighted because the celebration that the JTB is doing today is an evidence that the present team, the present chairman is keeping the flag flying. And all those which is coordinating directors, and the members of the JTB from the states, they are keeping the vision of the founding fathers alive. Because as you will know, JTB is for the harmonization of a vibrant tax system in Nigeria, which at least we cannot afford not to allow it to continue. For a good 50 years, this battle has been on. And the 50 years has really given birth to very celebrated legislations and practice. We have gotten a stage when we have to talk about bringing in the value-added tax. We have talked about harmonizing the personal income tax. We have come to a situation whereby the taxes and other levies collections Act of 1998 was promulgated to make sure that at least areas of controversy, areas that can bring multiple taxation, areas that can bring tax evasion have been plugged within this period. It is a very good thing which we are doing. And I want to congratulate all members of the body and the executive chairman of the board for your job well done. And I'm happy to be alive to see this thing happening at our own time.
I remember the time we introduced VAT. We would stay until around 1 o'clock. And then one of those meetings, that was a coup. We didn't know. We were waiting for the tax. So, one of us is going to have a key, so they switch on the TV. And the next thing we say that they change the government. So we look at each other. Who are we waiting for? Then to open that we're working for Nigerians, not for any Indian. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's celebrate and let thank ourselves. Thank you.
The Federal Inland Revenue Service introduces the tax card to make all tax payment easy for you. Just follow these 7 easy steps. Obtain your taxpayer identification number, TIN, for free at any FIRS office. Get your tax card from your bank. Log on to www.firsonline.com. Then register to obtain a password and access the payment process pages. Fill your TIN number, tax type you're paying, amount payable, and period of payment. Confirm the entries on your transaction. Then print your e-ticket and present at any FIRS office as an evidence of tax paid. It's that simple. For more information, visit www.firs.gov.ng or any FIRS office close to you. FIRS. It pays to pay your tax.
Mrs. Ifeko Omogu Okaru is the current chairman of the Joint Tax Board. She takes a look at the future.
The JTB is a powerful body. It's powerful positively, not powerful negatively. Powerful in terms of what it could do to really drive taxation and drive economic development in the country. And the UTIM project by then, in 3 years' time, will be fully implemented, and also, hopefully, the various states will have built on that to automate their systems. Now, of course, the degree to which we will be a powerhouse will also be dependent on the degree to which the constituent parts have taken and leveraged on what the JTB has to offer. So for us, in 3 years' time, once all those things are in place, believe me, there's no hiding place for a tax evader.
Next episode, we will bring you the story of the second day of the second International Tax Conference, during which 3 highly stimulating papers were presented. Thank you for watching. Have a good week ahead.